Hello and welcome back to Read Becca. We are here for a catch up on my books, but I have to lead with I've got some orthodontics in my mouth. So everything is kind of feeling very foreign right now. I'm very lispy. So that's going to be the situation for a while, struggling with pronouncing words. I apologize if any spit flies in the direction of the camera. It's not something I can control right now. We will get back to that later on. For now, let's focus on the books. So let's start with kind of a mini haul and big explanation. I had talked last week about Trafik by Rikki Ducornet, setting me on a path of searching out this press, Coffee House Press, because this is a sci-fi novella, and I did finish this, so we'll talk about this one in a moment. It's a sci-fi novella, which that's kind of uncommon outside of a few big presses. So I was looking to see if they do more of this. And what I found is that this is a small press in Minneapolis who publish everything. They publish poetry, essays, nonfiction, fiction, and specifically things that don't fit into a genre category neatly. They have a lot of translated work, and that was really exciting to me. So I wound up kind of sitting on it for a couple days, thinking about the fact that they allow you to subscribe for their entire seasonal catalog for each season, and you get a steep discount if you do that. So I should say, obviously they are not sponsoring this. They have nothing to do with this. This was purely my interest. So then a couple days went by and went back. Their spring catalog was posted up. So I had decided already I was going to subscribe to the fall catalog, and the pre-order for the spring catalog was up. So I did subscribe to both. So yeah, I subscribed to both fall and spring, and the two books that are out already from the fall catalog are here. They just arrived. So I'm very excited about these. So there isn't really a winter in publishing. So fall means fall through winter. So I'm going to be getting one or two books from now through March for the fall catalog, and then spring is going to start up. I'm going to get one or two books a month for quite a while. So these two that are out, I'm super excited about, because in this catalog there were a couple names that I know, but everything was so incredibly different. And as I said, there's some translated work in here, there's some fiction, some nonfiction. We've got a poetry collection to start with. So this is Alive at the End of the World by Said Jones, and I absolutely love this cover. And there's like bright pink on the back. So I have picked up his other book, How We Fight for Our Lives, at the library off the shelf a couple times, and I always put it back because I always have too much on my plate. And so I haven't gotten to it before, but I picked this up knowing that it's someone I want to read. And I flipped through and read a couple of short poems when this came in, and immediately was like, this is really good. So I'm super excited to get to this one. And then a autofiction, I think, book. This is Bilbao, New York, Bilbao. And this is by Carmen Uribe and translated from the Basque by Elizabeth Macklin. So this is from the Basque region in Spain, I believe. And specifically, this is part of a series of books, the Spatial Species series, which is extra hard for me to say right now. Edited by Yumin Chalala and Ken Chen, investigates the way we activate space through language. So as I said, I think this is autofiction, and it's thinking about being on a plane and the plane journey from Bilbao, New York, to New York, and thinking as that plane journey is taking place about 3 past generations. And I think conceptualizing the distance between those locations and the people's lives in those locations. So that sounds really fascinating to me. So I'm just so looking forward to this journey of, I've never really felt any interest in getting a book box where I get a monthly book coming in, because they're so homogenous, and I'm not that type of reader. I just read all over the place, and I'm all about discovery. And I think this is going to exactly deliver that for me. So I may not end up liking every book that I get in that box, or not box, in the catalog from Coffee House Press, but I think I'm going to have a really exciting journey along the way and try out some really fresh new things that I have not read before. Like, I've never read a book from Basque. That's super exciting. So back to the book that I did read. This is Trafik by Rikki Ducornet, and I think this was from their last year's spring catalog, or maybe this one's 2020. It's a year or two ago. But this is definitely sci-fi. It's definitely very surreal, and it gives me a lot of cyberpunk vibes. But it's mostly in that it's sort of rule of cool. Like, there's a lot of stuff in here to sound cool, but it doesn't really mean anything. So overall, I really enjoyed this. The story is we're following two characters. Quiver, who is a woman who is in a post-Earth space. Earth has been destroyed, and she is traveling out in space with her bot, Mike. And Mike is piloting their wobble, which is some sort of ship or transport, I don't know. And they're out searching for something. And as I said, this is very surreal, so not everything really makes rational sense. Mike is obsessed with pop culture from Earth. So he has this great store of data from Earth, so he knows all about media and everything about pop culture. Mike becomes enamored with a young Al Pacino at one point. It's really interesting. But he's also really into like anime and Japanese culture. And so that pops up throughout this story. So it's very hard to get across what the point of the story is. Something goes wrong, and they then wind up on a route to this planet or place, Trafik. They have some internal incentives for going there, I guess. But it's mostly about the vibes of this. So I'm going to read you a short chapter. The chapters are very short. This is only, I think, 80 some odd pages. Very, very short. Fume Vap is the title of the chapter. A new cycle begins. Here she is, once again, grappling with a malfunctioning fume vap. The task is hers, because the fumes, such as they are, a discreet fart now and then, for forking's sake, are hers. It's rare that Mike's Pankweiser scorches, you see, and even when it does, its funk is nearly imperceptible. Periodically, however, Mike tumbles into a radical metaphysical mood, his bot-splaining accumulating exponentially. He will say, "A bot never passes fumes." He will say, "You cannot fix your own forking fume vap." It is true that the fume vap often refuses to cooperate, but from farts to fume vaps, Mike leaps into diesel engines, factory chimneys, the bombing of the souk in Aleppo, the demise of movie palaces, and this thanks to a tragically flawed digestive apparatus composed of melancholy, unfulfilled aspirations, at the mercy of allergens, bacterial infections, food poisoning, parasites, failing teeth, the ridiculous stomach, untrustworthy gallbladder, outrageous rectum, and the pesky esophagus. Quiver rallies, and crossing the room confronts Mike with her height, majestic on legs that, to Mike's dismay, go on forever. "You forking, self-righteous gizmo," she shrieks. "The normal functioning of my body is not an indignity. It is not a misdemeanor. You are accusing me of being human, you maddening thingamabob. And even if it is true that I am incapable of photosynthesis and cannot go solar, still, I mean, you too, Mike, will succumb to space-time sooner or later. You too are subject to change, subject to endings, Mike." So that is a chapter. That's very much the tone of the whole story. Having just recently gotten to The Past is Red by Catherine M. Valenti, I would say this is less poetic in the prose, but it has a really similar tone and style. Very similar biting relationship between the main characters. I think this was fairly similar. I did need maybe a little more meat to this. I wanted to have more of a coherent message maybe, or plot that's not there. But I do think there were a lot of great moments, and the vibes of this were 100% for me. I loved the characters, loved the vibes of the story, so it was really great, and I definitely need to look up this author and see what else that she's done. So that one was wonderful, and obviously sent me down a big rabbit hole. Then, actually, I will show you the other two that I read. I read Dandelion Wine by Ray Bradbury and Sacred Cat Island by Harmon. Weirdly, reading these two at the same time. These are both about a pair of young boys experiencing kind of one special summer in their lives. That was very odd. The boys are even at nearly the same age, and in both cases, we're following the older of the two as the perspective character. So in Dandelion Wine, we're following Douglas Spaulding in a small rural Illinois town in the 1930s, I think. I can't even remember. It's early 1900s. And this was written, I believe, in the 1950s. So it was already kind of historical at that point where it was looking back on. But it is very much just this moment in time of capturing a childhood summer and the wonder of that. There are things that feel magical, but really aren't. There are some like non-real moments in this, definitely, but most of it is that whimsy of childhood being put into here, into the stories. This is kind of more a collection of vignettes than one single story of all the fun experiences they have, the strange experiences. There's some spooky, kind of gruesome stuff, maybe. One story features the boys and their friends kind of fantasticizing this serial killer that's been going around, which is odd to me because really, like, serial killers aren't something that you think of as having happened until much later into like the 1960s, 70s. And so that coming up here really struck me because, you know, that's something that we talk about as having been a mostly new phenomenon, but it was clearly something that was going on in their community and something they were scared and had a lot of wonder about. But most of this is very, very mundane. One of my favorite stories from this was at the very beginning when Douglas is determined that he needs a new pair of shoes for the beginning of summer. Like, he needs that pair of shoes to set him off, and he will be so fast if he has these shoes. And he sets up a scheme and goes and talks to the shoe seller and lays out his plan for why he should have these shoes, even though he can't afford to buy them. And it's just this really wondrous story about the magic that exists inside a child's head. And as I said, this whole collection was great in capturing that just roving childhood summer. It was really, really fantastic. And I'm so glad I finally got to it. Really glad I picked it up while it was still summer and I kind of got some of that magic. So Sacred Cat Island is a self-published lit RPG that I picked up, and it is huge. This is over 600 pages, but this is very much that as well. It's just this very mundane summer childhood experience where we're following two children. Rowan is 13. He feels like maybe a young 13. He hasn't really gotten into too much teenager angst yet, which was a positive for me. And Rowan and his younger brother Toro are traveling with their father Ganix to Sacred Cat Island. They're moving from any city across the water to Sacred Cat Island, which is kind of a rundown island community of retirees for the most part. And they're moving there because Ganix's uncle ran the general store there and passed away. And Ganix has decided he kind of wants to make a change in his life. He was a former like programmer type person, and he wants to now go run the general store on Sacred Cat Island. So because this is a lit RPG, we have a lot of role-playing game type elements in here. We have literal stats on the page. We get quest text. I loved that that's just set dressing though. You could absolutely skip over all of that in here and not really be missing anything, because the main quest that he gets is literally just get used to living on the island. That's his main quest. So it's a lot of very mundane things. And this won me over so much. I'm so disappointed in myself for not having picked this up, really, because it came out in 2020. This was a lockdown novel. And it is the coziest, most chill fantasy I have read. This is Stardew Valley in a book, 100%. The kids are just helping out their neighbors that they're meeting on the island and kind of getting connected with a new community. There are points where literally he'll just get quests to help the local florist plant flowers, you know, stuff like that. It's really, really mundane. So if you're going for like high drama, this is not it. This is the lowest of stakes. So that I loved. I loved the fact that the brotherly relationship is such an important part of this story. That was so great to see, because they're not bickering. They do have some back and forth and have little disagreements, but for the most part, they're just like kind, good kids. And I really like seeing that, as opposed to a lot of the like teen angst that you get. I love that like their dad gives them odd jobs and chores, and they get dad quests in their quest list when that happens. It's so much fun what it does with the format. They can see all the cats on the island, because obviously it's Sacred Cat Island. There are cats all around. So they get their stats and their information. They can see which cats are related to each other. Like, it's just so calm and cozy. There are also actual like whimsical, magical things that happen here. Most of them are the kind of vibe of magic that you would see in like Stardew Valley, where it's just a little bit outside of reality. There's not people that are going around like casting magic spells and stuff. Things like them getting attacked by a giant catfish that leaps onto the docks and comes after them, that sort of thing. There are some definite like not real things though that are in here that are very whimsical and magical for this, you know, childhood summer. And so we get to unravel the mysteries of Sacred Cat Island as we go. They're very mundane for the most part, but I will say there was kind of a grim moment and really some ramped up tension toward the end in the last 100 pages. And I don't know that it needed that, but there definitely is some ramp up of stakes, but for the most part, this is like absolutely no stakes. Funny enough, this is actually also available on audio, and it's narrated by Travis Baldree, who wrote Legends and Lattes. So I think if you liked that book, that maybe even has more stakes than most of this book does. It's a very mundane, very Stardew Valley vibes. I think I've never played Animal Crossing, but I'm sure this probably has Animal Crossing vibes as well. I just loved it so much. There was so much about the family relationship and the brotherly relationship that was great in here. And I love seeing them connect with their community, get to know all of these basically elderly retirees in their community, and come to have empathy for them. And that was actually one of my favorite things about the stats. Like, you didn't really need these stats in here, as I said, you could just skip over them. But it was fun for me to see that every time they were out in this community, when they got to know someone new, they got to know people who were different or disabled and came to understand that difference, their empathy stat would go up the next day. So I really enjoyed seeing that, and just like it made me so like made me feel very heartwarming feels about these kids. So I just love Sacred Cat Island, and sadly the author has said this was just such a sales failure that he doesn't really intend to write more in this world. So this is a pretty complete book, even though it says book one. I would love if he comes back and writes more in this world, because this was so great and just gave me the cozy vibes that I absolutely wanted. So I'm very happy to have that chonker off my list. I had actually started that on ebook, and then I bought the print book because I loved it so much. So I'm really happy to keep it. And actually, I will show you here, the format of the print book is really lovely. So you've got little cats at every chapter header, and they're different cats every time. And little cat heads in the page breaks, really, really nicely printed. So I very much like that. That is all I read this week. It was a good amount of finishing. I'm very happy with it. And so my in progress pile is also quite large. So I started newly The Magic Misfits, the 4th suit by Neil Patrick Harris. This is the 4th and final book in the Magic Misfits series. So I wanted to kind of start this in October because these have been kind of spooky, very tense, ominous books, but they're middle grade. So that's just my vibe. I can't really talk about the plot too much. So we'll see how this one goes, but yeah, I can't actually say anything about where this is even starting because that is total spoilers for book 3. So yeah, sorry. Then I've been working on To Be Loved by You by Debbie Burns. I've only been reading one chapter at a time, so I've just been picking up and reading a chapter as soon as I sit down to jumpstart my reading. So that one I do want to get into. Then we have briefly A Delicious Life by Nell Stevens, the last from my October TBR. And I think I sat down twice with this and I'm halfway through, so this will easily be finished this week. And we've got my big chonker, The Queens of Innis Lear. So I'm still in progress on this. I'm over 250 pages. This is the priority for this week. So I think that leads me into my upcoming week. So I actually have a week off. Yay. So this is my first full day off, coming into a nice week off. I had kind of thought perhaps I would go travel and see my family across the country. However, my dog and my former foster cat, who's no longer with us, were not doing very well. So I kind of just never made the plans, but I had the vacation time off. So then I started thinking after Coco, my foster cat, passed away, I was like, maybe we can drive and do that still. But Cinnamon has not been doing great in general, and he this year has been doing really terribly with car rides. And so I know I can't leave him here. He will not do well if I leave him. So I would have to be driving him. So I've tried a couple times to get him in the car and make him feel comfortable, and that has not happened. So I'm doing a staycation and going to do a lot of reading. So that will be fun. I'm totally fine with that. I have some stuff to get done around the house and some fun stuff I want to go do. So it's going to be enjoyable, but mostly a lot of reading, I think. So hopefully I'll be able to get a good chunk of this one done, and probably all of the other stuff I have in progress, and then get started on some of my nonfiction November stuff as we jump into the next month. I do know I also want to read 30 Days of Night. I have the graphic novel, and I want to watch the movie for Halloween, because that'll be a great time. I really love that graphic novel. It's one of my favorites, and I haven't seen the movie, I don't think, since it came out originally, or within about a year of when it came out. So I would love to rewatch it and see how it's aged. So other than that, my week has been all about the teeth. So back to that topic. Yeah, I doubt you can see, I got a bar up here and then Invisaligns on bottom. So the goal is that I will get to the point of Invisaligns on both top and bottom. This has been a process. If you were not around last year, at the end of last year, I had a crown removed in the back of my mouth, and it was one that had given me problems for years. I had it in for probably 20 years, and I just had intermittent problems a lot with that crown. Root canal crown, everything was just really annoying and constantly a problem. So I finally got it out, and now I had talked to the dentist years ago, I think probably maybe almost 10 years ago, about getting Invisaligns. And all that time ago, it was basically, if you want to do that, that's possible, but you're gonna have to get a tooth pulled. So now that I have my crown out, I have room. There's no tooth there. So that got all healed up about February. I got referrals to orthodontists, to a bunch of them. So since then, it's been a nothing burger of stuff, of just researching orthodontists, and only one of them that I was referred to actually took my insurance. So then I had to research other ones that also took my insurance, so I'd have a few to see. So finding my own orthodontist, and of course, the one I ended up picking is the one that was a referral from my dentist that actually takes my insurance. So I wound up really liking this orthodontist a lot, and it's very close to my office. So if I do go back to the office, I'm still not back to working in the office, I'll be able to make it over there very easily, because this is going to be more than a year process to get my teeth sorted out. And so I'm going to be up there a lot. Yeah, so basically what I've got going on right now, I've got brackets, or not brackets, I've got a carrier or carrier on top, and then a bracket in the bottom back, and an Invisalign on the bottom pops into the brackets, and then the carrier has a little rubber band that hooks to the back. So on the top, we're just fixing my bite right now. I have kind of a massive overbite, and that was a fun part of this whole process, that all of the orthodontists I saw were very professional and polite, but they kind of had this like fascinated moment, all of them, where they didn't say it in these words, but they basically were like, wow, your face should really be more messed up. Like, apparently I've been overcorrecting for a massive overbite. So I was aware, even though no one has actually like talked to me about my having an overbite or how bad it is. Like they very much said, all of them, like with that severe of an overbite, like your face should be significantly like out of profile. It should be very obvious, but for me, it's not. And I think I've been overcorrecting for that just naturally. And so like when I go to the dentist and they, take my x-rays and stuff and they tell me to bite down, I almost never, like I have to think about it to actually close my mouth and bite down, because I keep my teeth separated all the time and have my top teeth kind of pulled back a bit. So that was interesting and eye-opening to see. I don't feel like any of them were rude at all, but it's like things like that you don't really think about, or you're not really exposed to how severe the problems might be. So I've got Invisalign on the bottom, which hopefully you can't really see. They kind of attach little like wedges to the outside of your teeth. They're almost like rock climbing handholds. And then the Invisalign just slides over top of your teeth and you pop it in and out when you eat. You can't have anything hot, so that's really going to be hard over the winter for sure, because I normally drink a ton of coffee. So I'm drinking a lot of water right now. So yeah, I think everything has been going well though. The Invisalign is way easier and way more comfortable than I expected, other than slight lisping. And the metal bars though, that is a lot of like soreness. So the front tooth that it's hooked onto that's being pulled back is really sore. So yeah, I mean, nothing has been horrible though. It's just been kind of soreness and a little bit of headaches, and that is about it. Really, this has been much more chill than I was expecting it to be. So yeah, I'm just kind of managing around all of that and dealing with it. In terms of my week, otherwise, I don't think there's anything else to talk about. Hopefully I will have a lot of fun stuff to show next week from going out and doing fun stuff. This week was a lot of work and catching up stuff so that I don't have to work next week. I don't have to like jump in and clean up any messes, so that it will be a complete week off. So I'm very much looking forward to that. In terms of my recommendations this week, I have several things. So the first one is from Nell at Book Hunt. Great video on what is a strong female lead. And I am completely in agreement with Nell's assessment. Like there has been, I think with the growth of like the 90s, late 90s and 2000s kind of YA, there were like these strong female leads that were just exclusively like badass physical strength. And that kind of served filling a gap in the market, definitely. And I think that's good, but it became a trope and like a one size fits all sort of thing. And when we talk about a strong female lead, that's not what we mean. We mean a variety of rich female characters. And I love how Nell expressed that. So really great video. I highly recommend you check that out. The other two are kind of paired together from Nell's husband, Scott, Gunpowder Fiction and Plot. We had Breaking Up with Audible video on how you can get free audiobooks or low-cost audiobooks and leave Audible, get rid of your Amazon subscription there. So I loved a lot of the assessment. There were a lot of things I didn't expect about specifically labor practices and how they source materials, that sort of thing was really enlightening and useful. So I would recommend checking that out. And somewhat tangentially to that one, we also have In Praise of Good Bookstores, a video that is a book review. So that's the title of the book that Leaf by Leaf is the channel, was reviewing that book. So I had never heard of that book, but it seems to talk a lot about things to do with big algorithmic sales toward you online and how there is a lot of value in browsing. If you've been around, you know I'm a huge proponent of browsing. And, back to exactly what I was talking about at the beginning with jumping into this Coffee House Press subscription. I'm so excited because of the wonder of discovery that I have, and that I like to find things that are new, fresh, and different. And algorithms are looking to predict from what you've already bought. They want to keep selling you the same thing because they know you were interested in this before. And so I think this video by Leaf was really good because he talks about that and discusses kind of the fact of being in a physical bookstore. You may reach for things that you may never have if you're online and being shoved recommendations from an algorithm. And so I think there was a lot more to it. So I really recommend checking out that video, or both of those videos. So I will put all the links for those recommendations down below. So I think that's it for my week. I'm really looking forward to my time off. I'm going to do so much reading. Come next week, we'll check back and I'll have not read anything, right? I hope everyone has a great Halloween. I'm really looking forward to it. I don't think I'm going to do a costume. I have not prepared anything, but we will see. Yeah, enjoy your candy. Be spooky. Have a great week, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. The squirrel is not going to let us pass, I don't think. Hello! What are you doing? Do you not want to come off the porch? It just keeps raining, doesn't it? It's been raining all day. Cinnamon says, I'm done with this wet stuff. Come on, do you want to go for a walk? No? It's just a littering of bodies on the bed at this point. This guy just hopped right out of that hole in the pumpkin. What a naughty squirrel.